They mocked her for being weak, an Omega born only to serve. But when the rival Alpha King challenged her pack, she didn't bow. She rose. And when she did, the moon itself trembled. Now, as the dust settled and the echoes of the battle faded into silence, she stood amidst the fallen, blood and moonlight mingling on her skin. No one dared to speak. Warriors who once sneered at her strength now stared in disbelief, their hearts pounding with the realization that the impossible had just happened. The underrated Omega had brought down a king, yet as her chest heaved and the mark of the moon pulsed faintly beneath her skin, a chill swept through the air. Victory tasted sweet, but fleeting, because deep within the shadows of the forest, something ancient had awakened, drawn by the power she had just unleashed. Hello, Moonlight family. Welcome back to Moonlight Romance Stories. If you're new here, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic stories filled with betrayal, power, and transformation. And to all my loyal viewers, thank you for always lighting up the Moonlight world with your support. The night was unnaturally still. The scent of iron and rain lingered in the air, thick and heavy, as if the world itself refused to breathe. Her chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm, each breath a reminder that she was still alive, and that the impossible had just happened. The underrated Omega, the one everyone mocked as weak, had brought down the rival Alpha King. Her knees trembled as she looked around the battlefield. The bodies of wolves lay scattered beneath the pale glow of the moon, their eyes glassy, their loyalty buried with their pride. In the distance, her own pack stared in disbelief. No one moved. No one dared speak. The wind howled through the broken trees, carrying whispers that didn't belong to this world. Then the mark on her chest began to burn. A faint hum echoed in her ears, ancient, melodic, like a language from the beginning of time. She pressed her palm against it, trying to steady its rhythm, but the glow only grew stronger, spilling light across her skin like liquid moonfire. Her vision blurred. Something stirred beside the fallen Alpha King. His once mighty body shimmered, breaking apart into fragments of silver dust. The air crackled. The dust swirled upward, drawn together by some unseen force, twisting and folding into a shape. His shape. Her heart froze. The figure that rose from the ashes was made of shadow and light intertwined, his eyes like pools of molten silver. The voice that came from him wasn't human. It was layered, deep, resonant, echoing like 10 voices speaking as one. "Do you feel it?" the shadow asked, its tone neither threat nor comfort, but something ancient, something that had waited lifetimes. "The moon knows you now. It calls to what was forgotten." She stepped back, her claws half shifted, her body trembling between fight and flight. "You're not him," she whispered. "You can't be." The shadow tilted its head. "He was only a vessel, a shell I borrowed." Her blood turned to ice. The battlefield around her began to distort, the trees bending unnaturally, the stars flickering out one by one as if the world recoiled from his presence. Her pack shouted her name, but the sound was distant, muffled, as though coming from another realm. The mark on her chest pulsed violently. Light spilled from it, wrapping her in ribbons of silver that clashed with the darkness radiating from the figure. For a heartbeat, she saw something behind his eyes, images of forgotten wars, of gods and beasts kneeling under the same moon that now burned above them. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her voice was barely more than a whisper. The shadow smiled faintly, and the world seemed to shudder in response. He stepped closer until his presence wrapped around her like smoke. "I have waited," he said softly, "for the return of my other half." Her breath caught. What do you mean?" The shadow's form flickered, its edges unraveling like mist caught in the wind. Then, with a sound like thunder swallowed by silence, it leaned closer, its voice a whisper that crawled beneath her skin. "Because, little Omega," the shadow murmured, his silver eyes locking with hers. I have always known your name. The moon blazed overhead, brighter, colder, and for a fleeting instant, her mark flared in answer, pulsing in the same rhythm as his. And then everything went dark. The shadowed figure speaks her name as if it has always known her. Darkness stretched endlessly, swallowing the battlefield whole. She couldn't tell if her eyes were open or closed, only that she was standing in a void where even her heartbeat sounded foreign. The silence pressed against her skull until a low hum began to vibrate through the air. Where am I? She whispered. You are within the space between, came the voice, his voice, smooth, commanding, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. Where souls meet truth. The darkness rippled like liquid, and from it the shadow emerged again. But this time he wasn't vague or spectral. He was solid, towering, his form built from both smoke and silver veins of light that pulsed like living blood. His eyes burned brighter than before, not cruel but knowing. I am the true Alpha, he said, his tone carrying the weight of forgotten centuries, the one your kind feared long before they bowed to kings and prayed to moons. She took a step back, her claws drawn, every nerve screaming danger. The true Alpha? She echoed. No, you're a lie wearing a dead man's skin. He smiled faintly. The man you killed was never truly alive. He was mine, a vessel, nothing more. You freed me, Omega. You awakened what was buried beneath the silver crown. The mark on her chest ignited suddenly, white hot, sending her to her knees. It pulsed in sync with the rhythm of his voice. She bit down a scream as the energy coiled inside her, burning through her veins like molten moonlight. What do you want from me? She gasped. The shadow circled her slowly, his voice lowering to a whisper. Power or destruction. The choice is always the same. You carry the flame, but you do not yet understand it. With me, you can rule what even the gods abandoned. Refuse, and I will take what's mine. She forced herself to stand despite the agony. I'll never serve you. For a moment the void grew still. Then his silver eyes darkened, the smile fading from his face. So be it. A sound like cracking glass filled the air. The light around her shattered into fragments that spun violently, cutting through the void like shards of frozen fire. She screamed as the mark on her chest exploded in blinding radiance. The shadow's form broke apart, dissolving into smoke and streaming toward her like a storm unleashed. She tried to run, but the darkness wrapped around her limbs, dragging her backward. Her scream echoed into the void, raw and desperate. Stop! She cried, clutching her chest as the shadow's essence slammed into her body. Her vision flashed, memories that weren't hers, kingdoms burning, wolves kneeling, a moon torn in half. She saw the true Alpha crowned in silver flame, and a woman, her face, standing beside him. Then came his voice, low and intimate, inside her mind. There is no you without me, little Omega. We are bound now, fate sealed in moonfire. Her body convulsed as the light and darkness collided within her. The mark on her chest reshaped, twisting into a new symbol, a spiral of light and shadow intertwined. When she finally opened her eyes, the battlefield had returned, but everything looked different, sharper, colder. Her packmates stood frozen, staring in terror. The moon itself had turned crimson. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. The voice inside her whispered softly, almost tenderly. Together, we will rise again. Her eyes flickered silver as the last remnants of the shadow vanished into her skin. The shadow vanishes inside her body, merging with her soul. Her scream still echoed in the corners of her mind when her eyes snapped open. The battlefield was gone. The air no longer smelled of blood and ash, but of pine, smoke, and damp earth. She lay on a mat of woven furs inside the pack's healing tent. The fire crackled softly beside her, throwing trembling light across the canvas walls. Her head throbbed with an unnatural rhythm, one heartbeat her own, the next belonging to something else entirely. Easy, came a familiar voice. It was Lyra, her closest friend, kneeling beside her. "You've been out for 2 days. We thought—" She hesitated. "We thought the moon had taken you." She sat up slowly, wincing as the world tilted. "2 days?" she whispered. "What happened after—" Her voice trailed off as her gaze caught the reflection in a metal bowl beside her. Her eyes. They glowed faintly, silver threaded with crimson, flickering like moonfire caught in shadow. Lyra gasped, stepping back. "Your eyes." The tent flap burst open. The beta entered, flanked by 2 guards. His expression was hard, wary. "The elders demand to see you," he said, his tone a mix of authority and fear. "Now." Outside, the camp had changed. The once calm clearing buzzed with unease. Wolves avoided her gaze. Whispers followed every step she took. The moon above, always pale and serene, now hung crimson and swollen, bleeding light across the forest. The sight made her chest tighten. She could feel the pulse of it in her veins, as if the moon itself was beating in rhythm with her heart. At the center of camp, the elders waited beside the sacred stone. Their robes shimmered with lunar symbols, but their eyes held only suspicion. "She has returned," the eldest murmured, his voice trembling. "And the moon bleeds red. You all see the sign." Another elder pointed at her chest. "That mark. It has changed." She glanced down. The spiral of light and shadow shimmered beneath her skin, alive, moving faintly as if breathing. "I didn't do this," she said, her voice unsteady. "Something happened after the battle. The Alpha King, his shadow." "Silence," the beta barked. "You speak of forbidden things." Her heart pounded. She looked around, faces she had known since childhood, now twisted by fear. Even Lyra avoided her eyes. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "Something ancient is inside me. It's—" The ground trembled suddenly. A low hum rolled through the camp, deep and resonant. The mark on her chest flared, answering a call she couldn't hear. Wolves stumbled backward as a wave of invisible energy rippled outward, snuffing out the fires. For a moment, darkness swallowed them all. When the light returned, gasps filled the air. "She's cursed," one elder whispered. "The moon rejects her." "No," another hissed. "The moon obeys her." She stepped back, shaking her head. "Please, I don't want this." The beta raised his hand. "You are to be confined until the Moonlight Council decides your fate." Her breath caught. The Moonlight Council, the most powerful tribunal in the realm, elders blessed directly by the goddess. Their arrival meant one thing: judgment. A horn sounded in the distance, deep and solemn. The sound cut through the forest like a blade. Lyra whispered, pale as frost, "They're here already." The shadows around the camp shifted as figures cloaked in silver emerged from the tree line, their eyes glowing with lunar light. The Moonlight Council arrives to arrest her. The air turned cold as the cloaked figures stepped into the camp clearing. Silver embroidery shimmered along their robes, and the symbol of the moon burned faintly upon their foreheads. Every wolf in the pack dropped to one knee, everyone except her. Her instinct screamed at her to bow, to submit, but the mark on her chest pulsed in defiance. The lead counselor, an elder woman with eyes like frozen mist, noticed it immediately. "The mark resists the call," she said softly, her voice echoing like wind over stone. "Resists the moon." 2 guards seized the Omega by her arms. She didn't struggle, though her pulse thundered in her ears. "Please," she tried to say, "I didn't choose this." The elder tilted her head, studying her. "Choice does not matter to the tides of power, only balance. And you," she gestured to the crimson moon above, "you have disrupted it." The camp parted as the council led her toward a ring of silver stones, the ancient tribunal circle. Torches were lit, casting long, wavering shadows. Every eye followed her, wide with a mixture of awe and terror. "By the decree of the Moonlight Council," the elder intoned, "you stand accused of harnessing forbidden essence. corrupting the sacred balance and bringing crimson light upon the realm. The words struck her like a physical blow. "I didn't call the crimson moon," she said, voice trembling. "It happened when you let the shadow inside you," the elder interrupted. "You speak of the true Alpha, a myth buried for a reason, and yet his essence burns within you." She tried to answer, but the mark on her chest flared violently. She gasped, falling to her knees as pain seared through her body. The light from her mark spilled across the tribunal floor, illuminating the ancient runes etched into the stones. The symbols awakened, one by one, glowing silver then bleeding red. The council murmured uneasily. "She channels it still," one hissed. "Even bound it answers her." The elder raised her staff. "Then we must brand her, to sever the link." 2 guards approached, carrying a glowing iron engraved with the moon's sigil. The crowd held its breath. "No," she whispered, struggling to rise. "Please, hold her," the elder commanded. The iron descended. The moment it touched her skin, a scream tore from her throat, not of pain, but of energy unleashed. The torches flickered out. The crimson moon flared, then dimmed. A ripple spread through the air like thunder rolling through glass. Above them, the moon began to darken. Gasps erupted as the light faded completely, turning the world into shadow. An eclipse. Unpredicted. Impossible. The seers cried out, collapsing to their knees. "This cannot be. The eclipse was not foreseen." The ground trembled. Wind surged through the clearing, whipping robes and scattering ashes. Her mark glowed brighter than ever before, painting her body in spirals of silver and red. And through the storm of darkness, a voice cut clear and sharp. "Enough!" Everyone turned. From the collapsing shadows stepped a man with white hair that shimmered like starlight, his cloak torn and his eyes glowing with mirrored moons. The council staggered back. "Who dares interrupt sacred judgment?" the elder demanded. The stranger's gaze locked on the Omega, steady, knowing, almost reverent. "I do," he said, his voice calm, yet powerful enough to silence the winds. "Because you are branding the wrong person." The elder's staff trembled. "Who are you?" He took one step forward, the eclipse's light burning behind him. "My name does not matter. What matters is her." He pointed toward the kneeling Omega, his voice rising like thunder. "She is not cursed," he declared. "She is the chosen host." The mark on her chest blazed in response, matching the glow of his eyes. A mysterious white-haired stranger crashes the trial, declaring her the chosen host. The silence after his words was deafening. "The chosen host?" The elder's voice cracked, disbelief warring with fury. "You dare profane this court with prophecy talk?" The white-haired stranger, his eyes still glowing with twin moons, stepped closer, unfazed by their outrage. The eclipse behind him framed his figure like a wound in the sky. "Profane?" he said quietly. "You've already done that by laying hands on the one the moon marked herself." The elder raised her staff defensively, power humming in the air. "Who are you?" He turned his gaze toward the Omega, steady, searching, as if seeing something the rest could not. "My name is Kale, Sentinel of the Eclipse Order, Guardian of the Lunar Flame." The murmurs spread through the crowd like wildfire. Even the boldest elders drew back. The lunar flame was a myth older than any pack, a power said to be the heart of the moon itself, capable of rebirth or ruin. Kyle's expression softened as he looked at her. "It burns inside you now," he said. "You didn't summon it. It chose you. When you defeated the vessel of the true Alpha, his essence sought balance. The flame took you as its keeper." "I didn't ask for any of this," she whispered, clutching her chest. "I don't even understand what it wants." "That's the danger," Kale said. "The flame and the shadow were once one. If your bond grows unchecked, they'll merge again, and this realm will fall under a moonless sky." The council erupted in argument. Some shouted for her execution, others demanded her exile. Amid the chaos, Cale stepped between her and the elders, his aura flickering like silver fire. "Touch her again," he warned softly, "and you'll answer to the flame itself." The elder lowered her staff slowly, eyes narrowing. "Then take her from our sight, Guardian. Let her curse you instead." Cale extended a hand toward her. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, then grasped it. His touch was warm, grounding, like the calm before a storm. The moment their hands met, the air shimmered. Symbols of light spun around them, forming a sigil that pulsed once and vanished. "Wolves of Silvervale," Kyle called out, his voice echoing across the clearing. "Your trial ends here. She belongs to no pack now, only to the moon's will." The council retreated as the eclipse faded, restoring the moon's light. But the color was wrong, still tinged red, still bleeding. The forest seemed to breathe uneasily, as if alive. Kyle led her away from the circle. They walked in silence until the campfire lights were far behind. Finally, she turned to him. "Guardian of the lunar flame," she said softly. "Then why help me? Wouldn't it be easier to destroy me?" His expression darkened. "Because if you die, the flame dies with you, and the shadow within you will awaken unbound." She shivered at his words. The mark on her chest pulsed faintly, echoing the rhythm of his heartbeat, two forces tethered by something neither could name. Then the wind shifted. Kyle stiffened. He turned toward the horizon, eyes narrowing. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. The forest had gone unnaturally silent, save for the low, distant rumble of drums. When he finally spoke, his tone was grim. "They've already sensed it. The power of the flame. The rival packs are gathering." "Gathering?" she repeated, her throat dry. He nodded. "To hunt you. Every alpha, every warlord who ever coveted the moon's favor. They're coming." The drums grew louder, rolling through the forest like thunder. In the distance, wolves howled, dozens, then hundreds, answering the same call. Cale drew a blade forged of pale light and glanced at her. "Your battle didn't end with the Alpha King," he said. "It just began. The rival packs unite to hunt her down for the same power she carries." The first drumbeat shattered the night silence. Then came another, closer, heavier, until the rhythm of pursuit echoed like thunder rolling across the woods. Kyle grabbed her wrist. "Move!" They plunged into the forest, feet pounding against wet soil, the crimson moon painting their path in eerie shades of bloodlight. Behind them, distant howls rose, a chorus of vengeance. Branches whipped against her arms as they ran. The forest was alive with danger, snapping twigs, shifting scents, the electric hum of unseen eyes watching. Cale moved with inhuman precision, every motion honed, every turn calculated. She barely managed to keep up. "They won't stop," he said breathlessly. "The moment the flame awakened in you, it sent ripples across every pack's bond. You're no longer prey, Omega. You're a prize." She glared at him through her exhaustion. "A prize? You think this is glory?" He shook his head. "No. It's a curse, one the world has been waiting centuries to claim." A low growl echoed nearby. Kyle pulled her down behind a fallen tree, signaling for silence. Through the mist, she saw them. 3 alphas from rival territories, their eyes glowing amber, sniffing the air for her scent. The leaders of the Crimson Fang, Iron Veil, and Stormcrest packs, sworn enemies, now united by greed. Cale whispered, "They shouldn't be working together. The flame must have done this, united what was never meant to be." Her pulse raced. "Then what chance do we have?" He didn't answer. Instead, he drew his light-forged blade, the metal humming softly, as if alive. "Stay close," he murmured. Before she could respond, a sharp pain shot through her chest. The mark burned again, brighter this time, as if something inside her was clawing to be free. She gasped, clutching at her heart. "Let me out," a voice whispered. She froze. The voice wasn't Kale's. It came from within. "They'll kill you," it said, low and silken. "But I can protect you, little host. Just let me in." "No," she hissed under her breath. "Not again." Kale turned sharply. "What did you say?" "Nothing," she lied, shaking her head. But the burning didn't stop. Her vision flickered, images flashing in her mind. A silver throne under a shattered moon, a woman made of light and sorrow, and the same shadow kneeling before her. She stumbled, gasping. Kale caught her arm. "Easy. What's happening?" She could barely speak. "Memories. Not mine. The shadow. It remembers." He frowned. "You're seeing fragments of its past." "The moon goddess," she whispered. "It served her once, before it betrayed her." Kale's grip tightened. "Then it's worse than I feared." The ground trembled as the rival alphas closed in. Kale dragged her deeper into the woods, but her head spun with the shadow's voice, each word colder and more familiar. "He's lying to you," it murmured, wrapping around her thoughts like smoke. "Kyle isn't what he says he is." She shook her head violently. "Stop it!" Kyle stopped, startled. "Stop what?" The mark pulsed again. 1 heartbeat, 2. And then, in the dark, she saw the reflection of her eyes in his. Not her usual blue, but glowing silver black. The shadow chuckled softly inside her mind. "You don't even know the man you're running with." Kyle looked at her, concern flickering into something else. Something wary. "You heard it again, didn't you?" She hesitated. It said, "You have a secret." He didn't flinch, but his silence spoke louder than denial. The tension between them thickened like fog. "Kyle," she whispered, "what aren't you telling me?" Before he could answer, a distant howl split the air, followed by the sound of approaching claws. They turned and saw dozens of wolves emerging through the mist, eyes gleaming, surrounding them. Kyle lifted his blade. "We'll talk after we survive this." But even as he spoke, the shadow's laughter rippled through her chest, cold and knowing. "If he's what I think he is," it purred, "you won't survive the truth." The shadow speaks again, warning that Kale has a secret. The forest trembled with the sound of advancing paws. Dozens of wolves stepped out from the mist, forming a tightening circle. Their fur shimmered in hues of silver, ash, and midnight, and their eyes burned with the same blood-red glow that tainted the moon. Kyle moved in front of her, blade raised, his stance steady but grim. "Stay behind me," he warned. She could barely breathe. The mark on her chest pulsed violently, reacting to their rage, to their hunger, for her. The air was thick with it. The first alpha lunged. Kale's blade caught the beast mid-leap, bursting it into a spray of shimmering particles. But for every one he felled, 2 more replaced it. The forest became a blur of claws, light, and shadows. And then, silence. The wolves vanished as suddenly as they appeared, melting into the mist. The drums had stopped. Only the whispering of leaves remained. Kyle exhaled, lowering his blade. "They're not hunting anymore," he said. "They're watching, testing us." She leaned against a tree, chest heaving. "Testing for what?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to the faint glow beneath her collarbone. "For it. They're waiting to see if the shadow inside you wakes again." Her heart sank. "You knew about it," she whispered. "You knew this could happen." Kyle's jaw clenched. "I hoped it wouldn't." His voice carried a weight that made her step closer. "Kyle, what aren't you telling me?" For a long moment he said nothing. Then he sheathed his blade and turned away, staring at the bleeding moon above. "I know that voice," he said quietly. "The one that speaks to you." She froze. "You heard it before?" He nodded once, the faint tremor in his hands betraying his calm. "I was its vessel, long ago, before the eclipse order found me." The revelation hit her like a blow. You? I was barely alive when they pulled it out of me. The process nearly burned my soul away. That's why I was chosen to guard the flame, because I survived what no one else could. He turned toward her, eyes filled with sorrow. But that means I know what's coming for you. The longer you resist it, the harder it fights back. Her throat tightened. You think I'll become like you? His voice dropped, raw and quiet. No. Worse. He stepped closer, the moonlight cutting sharp edges across his face. If the shadow fully merges with you, the flame won't just consume your body. It'll unmake the entire balance of the moon's cycle. The packs will tear themselves apart, and the night will never end. She swallowed hard. So what then? You'll protect me until that happens? Kyle's silence was answer enough. She stared at him, disbelief turning to fear. You'd kill me? His eyes flickered with pain. If it means saving the realm from eternal darkness, Gyu? Yes. The words hung between them, heavy and merciless. The mark on her chest dimmed, as if recoiling from the truth. Neither spoke again that night. They made camp deep in the forest, away from the blood-lit sky. Kale stood guard until she finally drifted into uneasy sleep, his blade resting beside him. But peace never came. In her dreams, the shadow's voice coiled like smoke. He told you what you needed to hear, it murmured sweetly, but not what he's hiding. She twisted in her sleep, breath quickening. The mark blazed again, its light now darker, like molten silver. He'll kill you the moment you lose control, the voice continued. So why wait? Her fingers twitched, her heartbeat slowed, her body moved, not by her will. The darkness within stretched, curious, hungry. Kale stirred, sensing movement. His eyes snapped open just as her hand, wreathed in a pale, unnatural glow, hovered inches above his chest. Stop, he whispered, voice breaking. It's not you, is it? The shadow inside her smiled through her lips, its voice layered over hers. No, it purred. But she's watching. The shadow uses her body to attack Kale in his sleep. Kale's hand flew to his blade, but he hesitated. Her eyes were no longer her own. They glowed with fractured silver, the same color as the moonlight spilling through the trees. Her movements were smooth, deliberate, almost reverent. Let her go, he said, voice trembling between command and plea. The shadow's smile curved through her lips. You know what happens when she sleeps, Guardian? You knew this day would come. Kale tightened his grip. If you hurt her... Hurt her? It laughed softly. She invited me. Before he could react, her hand shot forward. Silver fire exploded between them, sending him crashing into a tree. He coughed, blood painting his lip, but forced himself to stand. The glow in her chest pulsed wildly, flickering between gold and black. The flame and the shadow were fighting inside the same vessel. Stop, Cal shouted. You'll tear yourself apart. For a heartbeat, she seemed to hear him. Her fingers trembled. Her expression faltered, fear flickering beneath the shadow's control. Kale, she whispered weakly. It's inside. Help. The words cut off in a scream as her body convulsed, light bursting outward in waves. Then everything went silent. The forest vanished. The ground disappeared beneath her. She was falling through endless darkness until her feet hit solid ground. When she opened her eyes, she was somewhere else. A vast expanse stretched before her, lit by a fractured moon hanging in a colorless sky. Mirrors rose from the ground like glass towers, each one reflecting a different version of her. Child, warrior, captive, queen. Their eyes followed her, whispering fragments of memory. This isn't real, she murmured. No, said a voice, echoing all around. It's what's left of your mind. She spun around. The shadow stood behind her, taking the shape of a man draped in darkness, his form made of smoke and sorrow. But his eyes, those eyes were painfully familiar. They were hers. Why are you doing this? She demanded. I'm not your enemy, it said quietly. I'm what you were meant to become. I don't believe you. The shadow raised a hand and the mirrors shimmered. One cracked open like a door, revealing flashes of a forgotten past. Wolves kneeling under a full moon, a woman crowned in light, and beside her, the same shadow, kneeling like a protector. She was the first moon queen, the shadow whispered, the one who bound me to guard her flame. I failed her, and the world forgot her name. But her blood, her power, lives in you. The realization struck like lightning. You're saying, yes, the shadow said softly. You are her descendant, the last of the Moon Queen's line. The mirrors began to ripple, showing her battles, her scars, her rise from nothing. Each memory glowed brighter until her surroundings trembled. The shadow stepped closer, its voice lowering to a whisper. You've been taught to fear me, but I am not your curse, little queen. I am your reflection, the half your ancestors buried to keep the balance. She stepped back, shaking her head. You're lying. Kyle said. The shadow's laughter cut through her words, low and knowing. Kyle said what he was told to say. The eclipse order taught him fear, not truth. The mirrors shattered one by one, and the voice of the moon itself seemed to fill the void, deep and sorrowful. Light poured down like liquid silver, forming the image of a woman cloaked in radiance, the Moon Queen herself. Her presence silenced the storm. My child, the queen said gently, you've come far to remember. The Omega fell to her knees, trembling. Are you real? The queen's hand brushed her cheek, her touch cool as moonlight. As real as the blood that binds us. Then tell me, what is the shadow? What does it want from me? The queen's expression darkened with sadness. It doesn't want to destroy you, she said. It is you. The words echoed through the mindscape, breaking what little certainty remained. The shadow isn't your enemy, the queen whispered, fading into light. It's your other half. The ground cracked beneath her feet as the world began to collapse. She screamed as the mirrors shattered, pulling her back toward consciousness, toward the waking world where Kale waited, blade drawn, guilt heavy in his eyes. The Moon Queen's spirit warns her, the shadow isn't your enemy. It's your other half. The first thing she saw was steel. Kale's blade glimmered inches from her throat, its edge flickering with the same light that once saved her. His hands were shaking, not from weakness, but from fear. Don't move, he whispered. His voice was hoarse, hollow. Her breath caught. The world around them was still. Silent forest, dying embers, faint traces of smoke where their campfire had been. Kale, she said softly, put it down. I can't, he replied, the pain in his eyes deeper than any wound. The shadow took control. I can't risk. It's not controlling me anymore. She rose slowly, keeping her voice calm. Listen to me. I understand now. The Moon Queen showed me the truth. Kyle's blade wavered. What truth? That the shadow isn't my curse. It's my other half. The forest wind seemed to still at her words. Kyle's gaze hardened, as though refusing to believe it. That's what it wants you to think. That's how it spreads. But as she spoke again, her voice carried a resonance not her own, layered with both light and darkness. No, Kale. It's how I become whole. The mark on her chest ignited, not in pain, but in harmony. The silvery black light rippled outward, touching the trees, the stones, even Kale's trembling sword. The shadow's voice whispered within, but this time it wasn't coercive. It was calm, steady, patient. We were never meant to be enemies, it murmured. You were meant to remember. A rush of power surged through her veins, ancient, electric, wild. She could feel the echo of the Moon Queen's blood singing inside her. The air shimmered as her aura expanded, lifting leaves from the ground in a slow spiral. Kyle stepped back, awe warring with fear. What have you done? I've accepted what I am. She raised her hand, and the air itself bent to her will. For the first time, the flame and the shadow move as one. A sudden crack split the silence. The ground beneath them glowed with sigils, the council's seal. They've found us, Kyle hissed. From the darkness, robed figures emerged, their staffs glowing with cold, lunar energy. The Moonlight Council, no longer judging but hunting. The heretic carries forbidden power, one of them shouted. In the name of the moon, bind her. Bolts of silver light erupted from their staffs. Kyle lunged forward, intercepting the blast, his blade absorbing most of the impact. The ground exploded, throwing them apart. Run! Kyle yelled. No, she shouted back. I won't leave you. Go! His voice thundered with desperation. He raised his sword again, summoning a barrier of pale fire to hold the council back. You're the last of her bloodline. You have to survive. Tears stung her eyes as she turned, sprinting through the forest. The mark pulsed violently, guiding her steps. Behind her, the sounds of battle filled the night, clashing steel, burning air, and Kale's final cry echoing under the crimson moon. Then, silence. She fell to her knees miles away, chest heaving, the weight of what she'd left behind pressing into her ribs. The shadow stirred gently inside her, not with mockery, but sorrow. He's not gone, it whispered. Her breath hitched. What do you mean? I can still feel him. His light didn't fade. It was swallowed, hidden. Hidden where? The shadow's tone darkened, almost trembling. Somewhere deep, somewhere dark. Not death, but something worse. She lifted her gaze toward the horizon. The moon was full again, but its light looked hollow, dimmed by something unseen. Kale was alive. But whatever held him was not of this world. Kale sacrifices himself to let her escape, but the shadow senses he's still alive, somewhere dark. The forest was silent, unnaturally so. Even the wind held its breath as she rose, the shadow's whisper echoing through her mind. Follow the pulse, it murmured, and you'll find him. The crimson moon loomed above, veiled behind drifting clouds, its color deepening with each passing moment. She closed her eyes, letting the faint hum of Kale's essence guide her. It tugged at her spirit, south, past the river that split Silvervale from the lands forbidden even to the moon's own seers. The Crimson Woods, she whispered. The name alone was enough to chill the bones of any wolf. It was said no light could pierce its canopy, no howl returned from its depths. A realm where time folded and old gods slept. She hesitated only once. Then she stepped forward. The moment she crossed the border, the air changed. The scent of life vanished, replaced by iron and ash. Every tree was blood red, its bark veined like flesh. The ground glistened with dew that smelled faintly of metal. We shouldn't be here, the shadow murmured, its tone uneasy. I have to find him. The whisper grew distant, as though the woods themselves were muffling its voice. The deeper she went, the heavier her limbs felt, as if unseen hands were pulling her backward. The mark on her chest flickered erratically, half light, half dark, until it steadied into a faint, rhythmic glow. Then she saw it, a clearing bathed in dim red light, and at its center, a massive stone altar pulsing faintly like a beating heart. Chains of black light coiled around it, and bound within them was Kale. His skin was pale, his chest barely rising, the blade he once carried shattered beside him. Kyle! She ran to him, but the moment her foot touched the stone, a surge of power rippled outward. The ground cracked, symbols of ancient origin flaring beneath her boots. Kale stirred weakly, eyes fluttering open. No, you shouldn't have come. I had to, she said, tears welling. I won't lose you again. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The chains tightened, glowing brighter. She reached for them, her hands trembling. The shadow hissed inside her. Those chains aren't forged by mortals. They bind soul to stone. Then I'll break them anyway. She placed her hands on the bloodstone altar. The mark on her chest responded, flaring with light so intense it split the darkness. Power coursed through her, wild, ancient, and familiar. The air trembled, and the chains began to dissolve. Kyle gasped, the red glow fading from his skin. "You don't understand. This place—" A sound cut him off, a low, guttural growl rising from the earth itself. The bloodstone cracked open, fissures spreading like veins of fire. From the shadow beneath the altar, something vast began to move. She stumbled back as a creature emerged, massive, lupine, its fur black as midnight and eyes burning with molten gold. Its very presence warped the air, bending light around it. Cale's voice broke into a whisper. "The first guardian, the moon's forgotten beast." The creature raised its head, sniffing the air. Its gaze fell on her, and the forest seemed to tremble under its breath. Cale tried to stand. "Run!" But the beast did not attack. Instead, it stepped closer, its claws sinking into the crimson soil. It lowered its head until its muzzle was inches from her face. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. The creature's voice rumbled like thunder in her mind. "At last," it said, "the blood returns to the throne." She froze. "What are you talking about?" Its golden eyes softened with something almost reverent. "You carry her light and her shadow. You are the heir of both halves, the queen of the eclipse." The title echoed through her like a heartbeat, resonating in the mark on her chest. The shadow inside her fell silent, awed. Then, before her stunned eyes, the beast, this ancient titan of the moon's forgotten age, lowered itself onto its forelegs, bowing its massive head in submission. The crimson woods fell utterly still. The beast calls her queen of the eclipse before bowing to her. For a long moment she could not breathe. The creature's massive form bowed before her, its shadow stretching across the clearing like a living nightfall. Even the crimson leaves above trembled, whispering in a language older than time itself. "You bow to me?" she asked, her voice trembling. The beast's mind brushed against hers, a deep, resonant pulse that spoke in thoughts rather than words. "Not to you, child of moonlight, but to what you have become." "What I've become," she whispered, the mark on her chest flaring. The beast raised its head slowly, its golden eyes glowing like small suns in the darkness. "The Eclipse Queen returns. When you defeated the Alpha King beneath the blood moon, you awakened the old prophecy. The balance long broken is stirring once more." Her heart pounded. Memories of that battle, the roar of the wind, the moment her blade pierced his heart, and the strange surge of power that followed, flashed before her. "That wasn't prophecy," she said softly. "That was survival." The beast rumbled with something like laughter, shaking the ground. "Survival is the language of destiny." It stepped closer, towering over her, but lowering its head in reverence once more. "I, Fenrian, first guardian of the moon and keeper of the eclipse flame, pledge my life to you, sovereign of night and dawn." The mark on her chest pulsed in answer, two halves of light, silver and crimson, intertwining. A wind swept through the woods, carrying whispers that felt like voices of spirits long forgotten. Cale, still weak from his chains, stared in awe. "He's swearing fealty. To you." She knelt beside him, brushing a hand across his cheek. "Then maybe I'm meant to bring the two halves together, the light and the shadow." Cale's gaze softened. "If that's true, then even the gods will tremble." Before she could answer, the air shifted, sharp, charged with tension. The beast's ears flattened, its eyes snapping toward the northern ridge. "Someone's coming," Kyle warned. Through the trees, the glow of torches flickered, dozens, then hundreds. The sound of boots crushing dead leaves echoed through the woods. The scent of steel and wolf blood filled the air. She turned toward the sound, heart tightening. "My pack." Figures emerged from the gloom. Warriors clad in silver armor, bearing the sigil of her house. At their front rode a familiar face, her beta, Loran, eyes burning with fury. "Alpha," he called, his voice cold and commanding. Or should I say, traitor. Her pulse quickened. "Loran, what are you doing here?" He dismounted, unsheathing his blade. "Fulfilling my duty to the pack you abandoned. The council decreed you a danger to us all." He gestured, and the army behind him fanned out, surrounding the clearing. "You're coming back with us, or I'll burn these woods to ash." Kale struggled to stand, but she raised a hand to stop him. "Don't," she whispered. "This is between me and them." Loran's gaze flicked to the towering beast behind her. "You consort with monsters now. You've truly lost your way." Her voice hardened, a calm edge cutting through the tension. "No, Loran, I've found it." The beast growled, its fur bristling, golden eyes narrowing. The very ground trembled with restrained rage. "Stand down," she murmured to Fenrian. But her beta raised his sword high, the army mirroring the gesture in a synchronized gleam of steel. "Then surrender, or watch your legacy burn with these cursed trees." The air crackled. The beast's eyes flared gold. Kale reached for her, desperate, and she stood at the center of it all, half light, half shadow, her destiny finally catching up to her. Her pack's beta appears with an army, demanding she surrender or watch her pack destroyed. The clearing pulsed with tension, every heartbeat a countdown to war. Her pack's army surrounded the woods in a gleaming ring of silver light, blades drawn, their eyes burning with loyalty to a cause she no longer recognized. Loran, her beta, raised his sword. "For Silvervale, for the true alpha blood." The world erupted. Arrows streaked through the crimson mist. Fenrian's roar shattered the air like thunder. She moved on instinct, hands outstretched, the moon's mark blazing across her skin. The energy within her surged, both holy and unholy, a collision of silver radiance and shadow flame. When the first arrow struck, it never landed. It melted in midair. Her power responded to fear, to pain, to Kale's fading heartbeat behind her. She could feel the shadow within rise to meet the storm. "Let me in," it whispered inside her mind. "Or they'll all die." She hesitated, torn between the pack that had raised her and the force she barely understood. But when Kale collapsed, an arrow buried deep in his side, the choice shattered whatever remained of her restraint. "Kale!" The forest exploded with light. A tidal wave of silver and crimson energy burst from her core, sweeping outward like a divine tempest. Soldiers screamed as their weapons dissolved into dust. The earth cracked beneath her feet. The very moon trembled, its glow flickering wildly in the night sky. When the dust cleared, only silence remained. Dozens of her packmates lay unconscious, some wounded, none dead. She had held back just enough, but the price was written across the land itself. The crimson woods now burned with an unholy glow. She dropped beside Kale, pressing her trembling hands over his wound. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please don't leave me." His eyes fluttered open. You chose me over them." Tears streaked her cheeks. "I had to." Behind them, Loran struggled to his feet, his armor cracked and smoking. "You've doomed us all," he rasped. "You turned the moon against us." She looked up and froze. Above, the once pale moon blazed red again, its light bleeding across the night like fresh wounds. The winds wailed through the trees as the ancient eclipse returned, a celestial sign of wrath. Loran dropped to one knee, lifting his voice in a broken cry. "By the decree of the elders of Silvervale, I cast you out. You are no longer of our blood, no longer of our name." The words echoed through the woods, carrying a power older than command, a binding law of exile. The mark on her chest flared, then dimmed, severed from its pack-bound light. Kyle reached for her hand, weak but steady. "You're free now," he said softly, "but freedom comes with enemies." She looked to the horizon where the red moon hung like a burning eye and whispered, "Then let them come." As the winds howled and the last light faded, the ground beneath them began to pulse, heartbeat-like, ancient and deep. Something beneath Silvervale had awakened. The pack's elders declare her banished and the moon turns blood-red again. The ground trembled beneath her feet, a slow, steady rhythm, ancient, alive. She turned back once, her gaze lingering on the burning horizon of Silvervale, on the home that had cast her out. The red moon loomed above like a wounded eye, spilling scarlet light across her path. Kyle leaned against Fenrion's flank, his face pale from blood loss. "Where will you go now?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer at first. The wind carried whispers, fragments of the moon's voice, too faint to understand. "Somewhere the moon cannot find me," she finally said. "Somewhere I can learn what I've become." They crossed the threshold of the Crimson Woods and entered the realm of ruins, a land once blessed by the moon goddess but now forgotten, devoured by shadow and time. The ruins were skeletal, towers swallowed by vines, streets cracked open by the weight of centuries. Every step she took echoed with the ghosts of the past. The shadow stirred within her chest, a soft, almost mournful whisper. "You are where it all began." "Then teach me," she murmured. "If I must carry your curse, I'll master it." The air shifted. Her mark flared, illuminating ancient glyphs carved into the crumbling walls. Silver fire spiraled from her fingertips, weaving into symbols of power. The shadow guided her movements, teaching her to draw upon the moon's essence, not through worship, but through will. For the first time, the magic obeyed her. She lifted her hand, and the broken stones trembled, floating in the air before shattering into stardust. A rush of exhilaration filled her veins, but it came with a cost. Her vision dimmed, her knees weakened. Every spell drained a part of her life force, tethering her closer to the shadow's essence. Cal saw it before she did. "You're fading," he said, catching her as she stumbled. "I'm learning," she whispered back, breathing hard. "Every price has its purpose." Night after night, beneath the bloodlit sky, she trained, summoning lunar fire, bending shadow light, merging two powers never meant to coexist. Yet each dawn, her reflection grew paler, her eyes more luminous like glass moons. One night, as she practiced among the ruins, her power struck something buried beneath the stone, a chamber sealed with divine runes. The ground split open, revealing a staircase that spiraled downward into a soft silver glow. The shadow's voice deepened. "This place remembers you." She descended the stairs, each step humming with memory. The air was thick with dust and echoes. At the chamber's heart lay a monolith, half cracked, half gleaming, with inscriptions that pulsed faintly at her touch. Her mark responded. Light flared, revealing a prophecy tablet engraved with a scene of celestial power. A woman with silver eyes and a mark of dual flame seated upon a lunar throne. Beside her stood a figure of pure darkness, crowned with starlight. Her breath caught. "That's me." The shadow's laughter rippled softly through her mind, neither cruel nor kind. "And that, my dear sovereign, is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of mine." As her fingers brushed her own carved likeness, the stone's light blazed crimson. The image of the shadow turned its head, its eyes meeting hers across time. And then it smiled. She discovers a prophecy tablet that shows her face, enthroned beside the shadow. The air in the chamber thickened until it hummed like a living thing. The crimson light spilling from the tablet crawled up the walls, painting the glyphs in blood and starlight. Her reflection stared back from the polished surface of the prophecy stone, half her face, half the shadows merging at the eyes. Cale staggered backward, shielding his eyes. "It's reacting to you." She couldn't move. The mark on her chest flared in sync with the tablet's pulse. Lines of ancient script glowed to life, rearranging themselves into words she somehow understood. "When the underrated rises, and the moon bleeds twice, the two shall become one, to mend or unmake the world. The shadow's voice echoed inside her mind, deeper than before, almost reverent. Do you see now? We were never enemies. We are halves of a single design. Her heart hammered. No, she whispered. I'm not your vessel. I'm not meant to destroy the world. You were never meant to, the shadow replied softly. You were meant to decide what survives it. Kyle stepped forward, his hand gripping her arm. Listen to me, he said, voice breaking. You don't have to follow this. Prophecies are traps, written by gods to cage mortals. You can choose your own fate. But as he spoke, the chamber trembled again, this time with a force that came not from below, but above. A wind tore through the ruin, howling like 1,000 voices. The crimson glow turned silver-white. Dust lifted, swirling upward as if gravity itself bowed before an unseen presence. Then came the voice. Ancient, ageless, echoing with both wrath and sorrow. Child of light and shadow, you have strayed too far from your purpose. Kyle froze. The beast Fenrian lowered its head outside the ruins, trembling. The shadow within her went utterly still. She turned slowly, and the world itself seemed to bow. From a pillar of descending moonlight, a figure emerged. She was vast yet human, radiant yet terrible. Her hair flowed like silver fire, her eyes were galaxies turned inward. Every stone, every leaf, every breath in the world seemed to kneel before her presence. The moon goddess had descended. Her gaze fell upon the Omega, her creation, her mistake, her chosen. You were not meant to wield my power so recklessly, the goddess intoned. You were meant to restore balance, not fracture it. The Omega's voice trembled. Restore it how? By merging with the very shadow that cursed your light? The goddess raised her hand. The air shimmered, and visions appeared. 2 moons colliding, the world caught between rebirth and ruin. You misunderstand, child, she said softly. The curse and the light were never enemies. They are the first and last breath of creation, and you are the heart that binds them. Kale stepped in front of her, defiant even before divinity. No, you can't demand that of her. She's not a weapon, she's a person. The goddess's eyes glowed brighter, and yet she carries the weapon's soul. The Omega's pulse raced. She looked between Kale and the celestial being, her mind a storm of voices, her own, the shadows, the goddesses, each pulling her toward a different fate. Finally, the goddess extended her hand, and the world dimmed to silence. The time has come, she declared, her voice both command and prophecy. Fulfill what was written. Unite the two, or let all things fall to nothing. The moon's light engulfed her, lifting her from the ground. Kyle screamed her name, reaching through the blinding glow, and the last thing she saw was the goddess's eyes, filled not with mercy, but regret. The moon goddess herself descends, commanding her to fulfill the prophecy. Would you like me to continue with episode 15, the choice of the sovereign, starting from the moment she awakens suspended between realms, forced to choose whether to merge with the shadow or defy the goddess herself? The world hung in silence. No sound, no heartbeat, only light, endless and suffocating. She floated within it, weightless, caught between heaven and shadow. The moon goddess stood before her, vast and resplendent, her eyes shimmering with aeons of sorrow. You have carried my mistake long enough, she said, voice echoing across eternity. It is time to end what began before you were born. The Omega struggled to breathe. End what? The goddess's hand lifted, and the light around them fractured into memory. Scenes flashed like mirrors breaking. A celestial forge glowing silver-white, a blade born of moonfire, a figure of shadow, kneeling before the goddess, whispering oaths of loyalty. The shadow, the goddess said, her tone heavy with guilt. I forged it as my weapon, a creation meant to defend the realms of light. But power craves balance. When I gave it form, it gave itself will. The images shifted. showing the shadow tearing free, devouring stars and turning its gaze toward the mortal world. I sealed it inside a vessel, your ancestor, the first Moon Queen. When she fell, her bloodline became both prison and key. The Omega's pulse quickened. You made it and bound it to me? You were never cursed, the goddess whispered. You were born to finish what your line began. Destroy the shadow, and balance will return. A light formed in her hands, pure, burning, alive. It was beautiful and deadly, a shard of the moon's own heart. She extended it toward the Omega. Take this blade of light and strike it from within you. End it now. The Omega looked down at her hands. The mark on her chest glowed faintly. Two flames intertwined, light and dark. Her body trembled. If I destroy it, she whispered, what happens to me? The goddess's silence was answer enough. Pain tightened in her chest. Kael's voice echoed faintly in her mind. Don't let them decide your fate. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she reached for the blade. But the moment her fingers brushed its edge, the world convulsed. The mark on her chest flared, silver and crimson fire colliding violently. A voice roared from within her soul. You will not kill me. The light shattered. The shadow burst free in a storm of black flame, wrapping around her body like living night. The chamber of heaven cracked, celestial light breaking into shards as divine and darkness collided within her. The goddess raised her hand, summoning torrents of silver fire. You defy creation itself. But the Omega screamed, her voice layered with another. The shadow's voice, ancient and thunderous. We are creation itself. The light and darkness merged, not in harmony, but in chaos. Silver veins rippled through her skin. Her eyes split into twin hues, one radiant, one abyssal. Wings of light and shadow unfurled behind her, each beat shaking the heavens. Kyle's distant cry reached her through the rift. What are you becoming? Her voice was both hers and not. What I was always meant to be. The goddess stepped back, awe and terror mingling in her face. No. This was never meant to happen. The Omega looked down at her hands, one glowing silver, the other devouring light. Her heartbeat thundered with divine rhythm. She had become both weapon and wielder, both curse and crown. The shadow refuses to die and transforms her into the moon's hybrid vessel. Silence followed the scream. The divine chamber, once infinite and bright, was now cracked, bleeding threads of light into the void. The moon goddess stood motionless, her expression torn between awe and terror. The Omega, no longer entirely herself, opened her eyes. One shimmered like molten moonlight, the other bled the deep red of shadow fire. Her voice, when it came, resonated with two tones, one gentle, one thunderous. You called me to destroy your mistake, she said, but I am your mistake. The goddess's hands trembled, her glow dimming. You were never meant to bear both forces. The balance is mine to command. The hybrid interrupted. Her wings spread wide, casting both darkness and radiance across the ruined sky. With each heartbeat, fragments of heaven disintegrated around her, drawn into the pulse of her new form. Below, the world felt her awakening. Wolves howled as rivers turned silver. The blood moon burned brighter, its reflection splitting in every pool and stream. Every living creature, alpha, omega, god, or beast, felt the pulse of something ancient stirring again. The shadow's voice whispered from within her, softer now. Do you feel it? The freedom of what we were always meant to be. And for the first time, she didn't resist. She let the rhythm of both light and dark merge within her, painful, beautiful, intoxicating. Power hummed through her veins like a song that had waited lifetimes to be sung. The goddess lowered her gaze. You've unmade the boundary between creation and ruin, she said quietly. Even I cannot foresee what follows. Then don't, the hybrid replied. Watch. She raised her hand, and the broken shards of the divine realm responded, floating upward, aligning themselves into a halo of twin moons behind her. Light and shadow danced together, forming a new sigil that burned into existence, a symbol neither holy nor cursed. Through the rift, Kale appeared, pulled into the collapsing sky by her energy. His eyes widened in disbelief. "What have you done?" She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "I've become what the prophecy feared." He took a step closer, ignoring the blinding glow. "Then let me stand with you, even if the world calls you monster." Something flickered behind her eyes, remorse, longing, humanity. But it faded as a tremor shook the realm. The goddess suddenly gasped, clutching her chest. "No, no, this cannot be." From the heart of the dying light, a new darkness began to stir. Not the shadow she had merged with, but something older, deeper, a remnant that had hidden even from divinity. It seeped through the cracks of creation, forming a figure with no face, no voice, only hunger. The goddess's voice broke. "You have awakened the hollow, the darkness that predates the moon itself." The hybrid's wings snapped open, instinctively shielding Kale. Her new voice rippled through the void. "Then I'll end it, before it ends us." But as she raised her hands to summon her power, the hollow spoke, in 1,000 whispering tones. "You are light and shadow combined, but I am the silence that devours both." The entire realm shuddered, and the moon itself cracked, bleeding light across the heavens. The hollow awakens as a darkness beyond gods, threatening to consume even the hybrid. The hollow's voice reverberated through the fractured sky, each whisper heavy enough to shake reality. "Light, shadow, all return to me." The hybrid, half divine, half accursed, stood against it, her wings spread wide, every breath burning with celestial fury. The moon goddess struggled to stand, her radiant form flickering like a dying flame. Kale was beside her, sword drawn though it trembled in his grasp. "Tell me what to do," he shouted over the chaos, his eyes searching hers for the woman she once was. "Run," she said quietly, her dual-toned voice breaking. "This is not a battle mortals can survive." He shook his head, stepping closer. "I didn't follow you across death and exile to run now." The hollow moved. Slowly, like gravity itself shifting. The air bent around it, devouring sound, devouring light. With each step it took, the fragments of heaven turned to dust. The goddess raised her hands, summoning a final wave of divine light, but the hollow's darkness swallowed it whole. The hybrid felt its pull, its hunger for everything she had become. Her marks seared across her chest as the power within her began to unravel. Light and shadow warring for dominance. Kyle saw her falter and ran forward, his blade glowing faintly with lunar energy. "If I can buy you time." "Don't!" she cried, but it was too late. The hollow's arm lashed out like a tidal wave of night, striking Kale square in the chest. The sound was soft, almost tender as he fell. "No." She caught him before he hit the ground. His breath came shallow, his blood silver in the moon's broken light. "You weren't supposed to," she whispered, her tears shimmering crimson as they fell onto his armor. He smiled faintly, his hand trembling as it reached her cheek. "I was always supposed to." The hollow loomed above them, its form growing vast and formless, whispering its promise of ending. The goddess on her knees wept silently, her power fracturing around her like shards of glass. Kale's eyes dimmed, but his voice carried a strange peace. "She fears you," he murmured, weak but clear. "Not because of what you've become, but because you were never her mistake. You were her replacement." Her breath caught. "Kale, what are you saying?" "She didn't create balance. You did. You're what comes after gods." Light began to leak from his chest, his very life essence shimmering like liquid moonfire. She tried to stop him, but he pressed his hand to her heart, forcing it inward. Take it. All of it. The world slowed. The hollow recoiled, sensing what was happening. The essence flowed into her like a river of eternity, fusing with her broken power. Her mark exploded into a radiant sigil, the full lunar crest, reborn. Kyle's body went still, his eyes soft and unafraid. "My queen," he whispered, "now rise." A scream tore from her throat, part rage, part grief, part rebirth. Light burst outward, colliding with shadow, creating a shockwave that split the heavens. The hollow staggered back, its voice breaking into static. The moon's fragments reformed above, glowing brighter than ever before. But the cost was unbearable. The goddess herself clutched her temples, her form cracking under the force of the unleashed power. The pillars of her celestial temple splintered, raining shards of divine marble into the void. "Stop," she cried, her voice trembling for the first time. "You're unraveling creation." But the hybrid stood silent, her wings spread wide, her eyes glowing like twin eclipses. "Then let it be remade." The temple shuddered violently, collapsing in on itself as waves of uncontrolled power erupted from her being, divine, mortal, and shadow merging into one unstoppable storm. The goddess fell to her knees as the heavens themselves began to break apart. The goddess's temple begins to collapse as her power erupts uncontrollably. The heavens screamed. Marble, light, and shadow twisted together as the temple imploded, collapsing inward like a dying star. The hybrid hovered amidst the chaos, her eyes burning with twin fires, one silver, one crimson. Every beat of her heart pulsed with the memory of Kale's sacrifice, and his essence still thrummed within her veins like molten light. The moon itself hovered shattered above her, suspended between life and ruin. The goddess, kneeling amidst the falling debris, reached out with trembling hands. "Stop this madness," she pleaded. "You'll tear the realms apart." But the hybrid's voice was no longer merely her own. It echoed with the resonance of the shadow and the divine. They were never meant to be one. The balance you forged was a lie. She raised her hands to the sky. The mark of the lunar crest blazed upon her skin, spiraling outward in runes of light. Energy surged from her body, flowing into the broken moon, and the world went white. A blinding surge tore through the firmament, and the moon split cleanly in two. One half gleamed in eternal brilliance, radiating the purity of light. The other half burned with dark majesty, cloaked in endless shadow. The shockwave cascaded through the mortal world, sundering mountains, stilling oceans, and dividing the night into twin realms. From that moment, the world was no longer one. The realm of Lumen arose beneath the pale half, bathed in celestial light and guided by order, faith, and the remnants of the goddess's followers. Across the rift, the shadow realm of Umbra pulsed with wild magic and echoes of freedom, its skies streaked with red auroras and the faint whispers of the forgotten. The surviving packs trembled before the miracle and the terror. Elders fell to their knees in awe, calling her the Moon Sovereign. Others spat her name as the devourer of balance. Lines were drawn. Armies began to form anew. The children of the moon would never again live as one. The hybrid descended slowly, her feet touching the fractured marble of the temple's ruins, now suspended between the twin skies. "Let them choose," she whispered. "Light or shadow, truth or control." The goddess, weakened but unbroken, glared up at her creation. "You've doomed them all." The hybrid's gaze softened, haunted. "No, I've freed them." But even as peace seemed to settle, a fragile, fleeting calm, the air trembled. The shadow realm darkened, rippling like disturbed water. From its depths rose a familiar, terrible presence. A figure emerged, his form wreathed in smoke and night fire, his eyes glowing with hatred reborn. The rival Alpha King's soul, twisted and reforged by the shadow's essence, stepped forward from the rift. "Did you think death could silence me?" he snarled, his voice echoing across both realms. "You stole my throne. Now I'll claim your crown." The hybrid froze. The shadow within her stirred, recognizing him, calling him by name from some buried memory. The goddess gasped, horror dawning in her eyes. "He carries the other half of the eclipse mark." The moon cracked again, lightning tearing across both skies as destiny began its next cruel turn. The rival Alpha King's soul reappears, reborn in the shadow realm, seeking revenge. The sky bled light and darkness in equal measure. Before the hybrid, lunar queen of the twin realms, stood the resurrected Alpha King, his body forged from smoke and bone, his crown gleaming with fractured moonstone. The shadow realm pulsed behind him, echoing with his heartbeat. The scent of blood and frost rolled from his aura. "I am no longer bound to mortality," he said, his voice layered with 1,000 whispers. "The moon tore me apart to punish me, but the shadow rebuilt me to reign." His gaze burned with vengeance as his claws sparked with dark light. "And now, I'll reclaim what you stole. My power, my pack, and the world that was mine before you broke it." The hybrid's breath trembled, but her resolve did not. "You died by my hand once. You'll die again." He smiled, a cruel, knowing smile. "Then let me show you why you can't." He raised his arm. From behind him, shadows coiled into the forms of warriors, hundreds of them, each with eyes as empty as the void. But when her gaze locked on the first among them, her heart shattered. Kyle. He stepped from the ranks, cloaked in blackened armor etched with lunar sigils, his eyes glowing with soulless obedience. The mark of servitude pulsed on his neck, tied directly to the Alpha King's aura. "Kyle," she whispered, the sound fragile, breaking against the cold air. "What has he done to you?" The resurrected king laughed, the sound cruel and triumphant. "Your precious guardian traded his soul to bring you back from death's edge. When he gave you his essence, he became mine. His life was never his to keep." The hybrid staggered back, the lunar mark on her chest flickering in turmoil. The shadow within her growled, enraged. "He's lying, or he's worse than we imagined." "No," she murmured, tears glinting in her eyes. "I feel it. Kale's light. It's still there, buried beneath his chains." But Kyle raised his blade in silence, the once gentle eyes that had looked at her with love now empty, mechanical. The Alpha King's voice thundered across the rift. "You wanted balance? Then face the cost of it. Your creation divided the realms. Now your love will destroy them both." Across the two halves of the moon, storms erupted, lightning of silver and shadow colliding in the skies. Armies of light rallied in the realm of Lumen, while creatures of the dark gathered in Umbra. The war of the eclipsed realms had begun. The hybrid steadied herself, power surging in her veins, yet her heart ached with unbearable conflict. "If the moon wants war," she whispered, summoning her twin blades of light and dusk, "then I'll give it one it'll never forget." She looked once more at Kale, her voice breaking into a vow. "I'll bring you back, even if I have to shatter eternity." The Alpha King raised his hand, signaling the charge. "Then fall, my Queen of Shadows." The armies collided in a roar that shook the heavens, light and darkness fusing in chaos, and in the heart of it all, two destinies once entwined now stood on opposite sides. And as her blades clashed with Kale's under the bleeding moon, the shadow inside her whispered a single chilling truth. "If you save him, you may destroy yourself." She sees Kale's eyes in the enemy ranks, cold, emotionless, loyal to the king. The battlefield burned beneath a sky torn in two, half radiant silver, half endless crimson. Every strike sent shockwaves across the fractured realms. Light clashed with darkness, hope battled despair. At the heart of it stood the Lunar Queen, her soul divided between the goddess's grace and the shadow's fury. Kyle moved like death incarnate, every motion guided by the Alpha King's will. His sword met hers with a scream of metal and magic, sparks of lunar fire bursting where their blades collided. "Kyle," she gasped, parrying a strike that nearly split her chest. "Fight him, you're stronger than his chains." But Kale's expression was empty, his voice hollow. "The Kale you loved died when you broke the moon." Pain surged through her heart, but the shadow within her, its voice softer now, spoke. "There's only one way to free him, and end this." She understood. The power that split the realms could also fuse them, but it demanded a price no mortal or immortal should pay. The Alpha King stepped forward, his voice echoing across both worlds. "Merge your light and shadow, and you'll cease to exist. Refuse, and everything you love dies." Her hands trembled as moonlight wrapped around her fingers. "If my end brings peace, then let it be." The shadow's form unfolded from within her, standing beside her now, a reflection made flesh. "We finish this together." They moved as one. Their blades, one of silver, one of void, pierced the Alpha King's heart. A burst of celestial fire engulfed the heavens, ripping through the darkness and flooding the world in brilliance. The king screamed, his form disintegrating into stardust, the curse of his reign unraveling with him. But the surge was too strong. Kale fell to his knees, the mark of servitude fading from his skin as his soul flickered free. His eyes met hers one last time, soft, human, full of love. "You did it, my queen." She smiled faintly through the pain. "No, we did." The power inside her ignited, spreading through the skies, light and shadow intertwined, fusing once more into a whole moon, reborn, pure, radiant. The realms trembled as the rift closed, life returning to balance. Kyle reached for her, but his fingers met only air. The Lunar Queen's body dissolved into 1,000 shimmering motes, her voice echoing on the wind. "When the moon bleeds again, I will rise where it begins." The light faded. Silence followed. The war was over. 100 years later. A village beneath a peaceful silver sky stirred awake to a strange glow. In a small cabin at the forest's edge, a young Omega girl gasped as pain seared across her chest. Looking down, she saw it, the same mark, burning softly in the shape of a crescent in flame. The moon above flickered. For a brief heartbeat, it split into two again, then healed. The girl whispered into the stillness, eyes wide with awe and fear. "Who are you?" And deep within her soul, a voice, familiar and ancient, whispered back, "The story isn't over yet." A century later, a young Omega girl awakens with her same glowing mark.